And I'll hand over to you now, Ryan.
Awesome, cool. Um, Fantastic. So here, everyone. My name is Ryan Jacobs. I'm the program manager for talent and well-being at Downer New Zealand. Really excited to be here today to kind of talk about Downer as an organization, who we are, what we do, and a little bit about our young professional program. I think it's always an exciting time right now when you're thinking about what your next steps are going to be or what maybe your first opportunities are going to be as far as internships and then looking at graduate roles as well. So I want to talk a little bit about what those programs are, how they work within Downer. And then I've got a couple of graduate engineers that are here as well to talk about their experience. Because one of the things about our organization is that we are a diverse organization. So I'm going to share a video now to talk a little bit about Downer and who we are. And then I will kind of break it down at a really high level of kind of our organization, what we do, and all the rest of that. So bear with me here 2 minutes while I try and run this machine. Let me just pop this over. I'm going to share this and then I'm going to ask if I can get a thumbs up.
At Downer, our ambition is to build a better New Zealand. We achieve this through thought leadership, safety, delivery, and in particular, the strength of our relationships. With our whole-of-life approach, we help our clients build, maintain, and operate New Zealand's vital infrastructure. The work of our highly capable and committed team, supported by trusted subcontractors and suppliers, helps the economy grow, allowing our people and communities to thrive. Right now, our clients face unprecedented challenges. New Zealand's growth, climate change, and aging assets are all converging. The stakes are higher, and we need to deliver stronger value by making the most of our specialist skills. To meet our clients' evolving needs, we need to simplify the way we operate by reimagining our organisation. So, we're making a change. We're reshaping Downer around 3 sectors: transport, utilities, and facilities. As well as simplifying how we operate, this will enhance our whole-of-life focus, maximise our operational performance, and align us more with our clients, offering a unique combined skill set with technology common across the organisation will make us more flexible and competitive and allow sustainable growth. We're making this change at a time of strong performance in all our sectors. Our market is changing, so we need to future-proof now to stay ahead of the competition. This will benefit all our stakeholders. We'll be more focused for our clients, easier to work with, and deliver better value. Our people will have clear pathways to progress, and our investors will see strong social outcomes through sustainable practices that drive sustainable returns. Because we're building a better New Zealand.
Cool. Could you hear that okay? I hope you could hear that.
Yeah, the sound was all good.
Okay, perfect, cool. Sweet. So as we were saying, so Downer New Zealand, we are a large integrated services contract engineering business. So we are about 10,000 employees across the business. And we have locations and opportunities everywhere from Cape Reinga to Bluff. So we are across the entire country. As I said, we've got over 10,000 employees across the business, and now we're divided into 3 sectors. So we're divided into our transport, our utilities, and our facilities business. So our transport business, we're looking at how do we connect each other through our roads, through our ports, through our airports, through the rail networks that we run. As well as through the materials that we're using for building all of those those different assets. So that's our road science business, looking at some of the R&D and the materials that we can use for road production, manufacturing, asphalt production. So a really, really large sector, and typically what the Downer business is known for. But we are a much larger than just our transport business. We also have our utilities and our facilities businesses. So our utilities business looks after power, gas, telecommunications, water, automation. So it's a large business that is really looking at how our networks operate and how we can integrate those utilities in smart and innovative ways. So there's a lot of work happening right now in the water space around the new water reforms and how we can bring infrastructure up to spec in that way. We've got a bunch of stuff going on with renewable energies in our power and gas business, working on some of the largest wind farms in the Southern Hemisphere. So there's a lot of really cool stuff and innovative stuff that's happening in that space. And then the telecommunications network that we run around the business. So we hold the contract with Chorus around the country, integrating things like 5G, doing things in the space of electric vehicle charging stations. So there's some really cool stuff happening in that business as well. Predominantly focused in that mechanical, electrical, mechatronics engineering. And then we have our facilities division as well. So facilities is the incorporation of the Hawkins business, which is vertical construction and vertical commercial builds. And then our Spotless business, which is hospitality, soft services, facilities management. All of that is kind of integrated in together to look at the whole of life of the facilities that we're building. So it's not just building a hospital, but it's building the hospital. How can we actually integrate the services that go inside of that hospital, and then maintain those assets for the longevity of their life? So we have a lot of really, really cool projects with Housing New Zealand, the Defence, Ministry of Justice, who else? Ministry of Education. So some really cool contracts there as well. And it gives a different perspective on the engineering world, because often we don't think about the facilities maintenance side of things. We just think about the design build. So what's interesting in facilities is that there's the opportunity to see the other side of the assets and how they actually get maintained through their cycle of life, which is a really valuable piece to understand, especially in the world of contracting, where it's all about the next contract and it's all about how does that contract live through its longevity. Cool. So that's a real high level, piece of our business. But within that business, we have our young professional programs, and that's what I'm here to talk to you all about today. So our programs, what are they? Why do we have them? So I like to think of these programs as incubators and accelerators for future leaders. Now, one of the things that's really interesting is that I find that university tends to cater towards the world of consulting. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually something that's really valuable is consulting. But the world of contracting doesn't get a stage very often. And there's a lot of opportunities within the world of contracting that are really valuable to understand and to see whether or not that world is right for you. And it's important for you to, I think, through an internship to try it out and see, is it for you? It's not for everybody, but if it is for you, there's so many opportunities that exist within it. So our programs, like I said, they're an incubator and an accelerator. So what I mean by that is that when we bring our young talent into the business, we provide them with a number of different development opportunities to accelerate their development. So mentorship, getting exposure to build relationships with some of our senior leaders, coming along and integrating with parts outside of the business they may be working in so that they can build those relationships and look at what opportunities may exist within our business. Because really, an overall view of Downer is that we have the capacity to design, build, and maintain a city from the ground up. And we're one of the only companies in New Zealand that will put testament to how we do that on the day-to-day. So it really is, the world is your oyster when it comes to opportunities within the company, but it's about how you actually seize those opportunities and maximize their value that's really going to be important. So us providing that conduit of connection through those relationships is really important for that. The acceleration piece is that we are a professional development partner with Engineering New Zealand. So we work to help accelerate your professional development. If chartership is something you're interested in, we help to, over our 2-year program, our 2-year graduate program, we can accelerate your pathway to membership, which traditionally takes 5 years. We can do it in 2. So we bring you in, we expose you to a pile of different development aspects, and that will help to accelerate that professional career and your professional kind of qualifications, as well as lay the foundation for, if chartership is something you're interested in the future, the steps that you need to take to get yourself there. Chartership is not for everybody, but if it's something you're interested in, then it's important to make sure that you lay the foundation and the stepping stones to get there, early on in your career. So across the business, we have a number of different young professional pathways that make our young professional community in the business. At any given time, we have roughly around 80 to 100 young professionals scattered throughout the business, whether it's through cadetships, whether it's through our graduate program. Over the summer, we have our internship program, and then we have scholars as well that tend to do undergraduate casual work through us while they're still studying. So where do our graduates come from? We look at graduates to come in through the BEng honors programs, so the Washington Accord programs. Traditionally, that's because the pathway to chartership is a little bit more linear than for someone that may come in with a BEng Tech or a diploma of engineering. There's pathways in the business for all of those streams, but for our graduate program, we specifically target in on BEng honor programs, looking at civil, mechanical, electrical, and mechatronic engineers as specialities, as well as obviously civil having the subcategories of structural and environmental as well. But looking at that is sort of where we are targeting for resource in the business. Now, our graduate program, the gateway to that program is our internship program. So roughly 80% of our graduate makeup every year has come from previous interns. You'll hear from a number of them today about their pathway, how they started in internships, and what that transition to graduate program looked like, whether it was a formal or informal internship. So our internship program is a 3-month program, runs from November until February. This year we had 66 interns in 26 locations. We had a 50-50 gender split again this year, which I think is an amazing accomplishment, not from a target space, but from what we're actually seeing of the industry now. I think it's really important that we look at the cohorts of young professionals coming out of university right now, and it's a real clear indicator that the futures of tomorrow are very different makeup than the futures of today. So that's something that's really important to look at. And as a business, we have to look at how can we support those leaders of tomorrow to actually kind of fulfill their potential within this industry and support them as they grow, because the people that they may be looking up to in those leadership roles may identify or may look completely different than the makeup of that audience. And so that's something that's really, really, it's something that I'm really passionate about. And it's something that, from an organization, we've done a lot of work in really trying to support that through some of our diversity and inclusion, initiatives that we have around the business. I'll talk about that shortly, just about what some of those initiatives are. But it is really amazing to see an organization that's really looking at that and how can we actually embed that into the culture of an organization and not just do it because it's a nice to have. So as I said before, we had a 50-50 gender split again this year. And like I said, the 80% conversion rate is from internships into graduate roles. So our graduate program is made up of 3 main pillars. So I'm a big believer that you get out of a program whatever you put into a program. So while these pillars exist, the graduates that make the most out of our programs are the ones that look for opportunity and seize the opportunities that exist, because opportunity is around every corner. It's just about asking questions and figuring out what those opportunities might be. So the first piece is a rotational program. So we're a 2-year rotational program. So roughly every 6 months, you will rotate around the business and see different aspects of the business, whether that is in one location, whether it's moving locations, whether it's moving business units to see different pieces of it, whether it's working on a project and then moving to a maintenance network and then possibly moving to a bidding and tendering team. There's opportunities around that. It's really important when you are starting your professional career to try different things and see what what resonates with you. And that's what's really great about a rotational program, is that you get the chance to drive your rotations, you get the chance to see what resonates with you, and then find a career pathway at that point. So it's a 2-year program that we have graduates. Like I said, every graduate you speak to will have completely different, unique experiences. So it really is about you and your interests and trying to align that to what opportunities exist within the business. The next piece is a mentoring program. So we have all of our young professionals are assigned a professional mentor to help expose them to the world of contracting. So it's a wide world with lots of opportunity. And sometimes it's important to have mentorship from somebody who doesn't necessarily have the same background, have the same streamline as what you may have, because it gives you the opportunity to see different pieces of the business and to see where some of your interests may be applied elsewhere. Mentoring and management, mentoring is such an important piece of your career at all levels of your career, because it allows you to build a relationship with somebody internally within the business that is looking at your development as a young engineer, not as a young engineer that works at Downer. So it allows you to actually take that Downer hat off and just look at your professional development in that sense. And it's a really important piece. We have a variety of senior leaders that put their hands up to be mentors for our young professionals. It's a piece of our program that those that utilize it to its full capacity find it as one of the most valuable pieces of their program because of those relationships that they build. And then the next piece is professional development. So while your rotational program will give you that practical exposure, and I like to think every day is a practical classroom, which is really what it is. But there's elements about professional development that we try to uniform across our business to give our graduates and our young professionals the opportunity to continue to develop along the way, in addition to their practical exposure. So as I mentioned before, we have our graduate program, or we have our rotations. They align throughout our graduate rotations. You will be exposed to different pieces that align with kind of the Engineering New Zealand competencies towards chartership. So looking at what those competencies are, a number of the different rotations in our business give you exposure to those pieces. And so through the evidence that you collect, through some of the CPD that you're exposed to, you'll be gathering evidence that will allow you to then, if you decide to move down the pathway of chartership, have some information around that through the exposure that you get in your different rotations. So as I mentioned before, the professional development, it comes in a variety of different facets. So we have our annual Young Professionals Conference. It's a 2-day residential conference that happens every year. In a world without COVID, don't know what that looks like right now, but in a world where we can recongregate, we'll do site visits and engineering forums in person where we can check out cool sites that are happening, interesting projects, potentially interesting contracts that may have, a spin on it, that we're doing something, that may be very innovative, or we might be using a new technology where we can showcase that in the flesh and bring graduates and young professionals around the country to come and see those projects. City Rail Link is a great example where we brought everybody to Auckland to kind of check out City Rail Link. But currently, those forums have shifted themselves to a digital format. So we now currently have a monthly technical engineering forum. So every month we have a different subject matter expert from around the business or external come in and talk about an aspect of the business that may have a technical component, or it may be an exposure component, showing graduates about a different piece of the business that they may have not heard about in the past. So that is our technical forums. utilizing technology to be able to reach every graduate across the country has been really, really beneficial, I guess, as far as a silver lining to the whole lockdown and digital transition and all the rest of it, is being able to connect everybody together through a 2-hour session to gain that that exposure is really beneficial in that format. So we've been doing that for about 1.5 years now, and so those continue going. When borders reopen, we will reignite our volunteer services abroad contract, where we send some of our young professionals over into the Pacific to work alongside the Ministry of Education over there, sending young professionals out for 3 months secondments to go out and really get personal and professional development, working in a completely new environment. It's working within New Zealand. You get the luxury, bar a slowdown in the supply chain, but you get a luxury of having, everything that you could need at your fingertips. Whereas when you're working over in some remote locations, which we do quite a bit of work in remote locations, it changes the way in which you have to learn about planning and learn about time management and learn about, what resourcing constraints you might have when you're putting into place a solution or a design that may not be able to work in a more remote rural area. So we've been doing that partnership for about 6 years. And anyone who's been on that piece of work always comes back with just a reignited with the power of what being an engineer can actually be for society, as well as the impact that it can have on communities. So really, really cool opportunity. As far as social outcomes and looking at expanding yourself beyond the borders of New Zealand. We also have 2 initiatives that have kicked off internally through our young professional communities and have now become national components. So one of them is our Young Professional Sustainability Governance Group. It's a mouthful, but it's a really important piece of our business that looks at some of the sustainability initiatives that we've run across our business. So Downer, as a large organization, that I guess visually, when you think about contracting and you think about construction, has an image or a perception of what what that does for the environment. We have the largest fleet in New Zealand. There's a lot of carbon emissions. So we have a lot of effort, and we spend a lot of our energy looking at how can we actually leave our environments in a place that's better than the way we found them. And so there's a lot of work being done in that, and our young professional community have created a subsection of a governance group that allows them to really tackle into some of these initiatives, providing their solutions and working alongside our leadership to really look at implementation of that. So we run an annual sustainability hackathon with university students, which we actually just ran last weekend. And it's really great to get people in to hear about what we're doing as an organization in that space, but also for our young professionals to kind of connect in something that might be outside of their business as usual. So really cool initiative there. The other is our Wahine Katahitanga launch. So that is a women's, a young professionals network of female engineers that have kind of built a support network as well as an education and development network for young females in site-based roles, is where it started and how it's growing. And it's been a really, really interesting journey that this team has been on, because as I mentioned before, the leaders of tomorrow look very different than the leaders of today. And we have a lot of amazing young female engineers that come into our business, but when they come into sites, sometimes they are not as fit for purpose for a number of different reasons, to really encourage our young female engineers to grow their careers in site-based roles. So we've identified that as something that we really wanted to take a stance on. And so by going external with this initiative, we've launched it from our senior leadership team down to really embed it into the culture and starting to develop a language around what this looks like and how we can drive change from not only a Downer perspective, but from an industry perspective. So there's a lot of amazing work that's happening in that initiative. And it's growing at quite a pace right now, which is really cool to see. And as I've been talking to a lot of counterparts and other engineering contracting businesses, more and more people are starting to pick up on these sorts of initiatives, which is really important to kind of drive that support network for the difference of what our leaders will look like as they grow through the ranks. So, that is a real high level, quick snapshot of our business. I'll talk more about key dates and what we're after on, but while I've been talking at you for the last 15 minutes, I thought it would be important for you to hear from some of our graduates and talk about their experiences, because as I mentioned before, every graduate has a completely unique experience through their internship and then into the graduate program. So it's great to kind of have a couple of our different grads. So I've got Jack, Ajoma, and Caleb with me today here to talk about their experiences, and just kind of give you a little bit of insight about what they found, why they maybe chose a career at Downer, or why they decided to start their career with us, and then just any tips they might have for you along the way as well. So I will pass it over, and I don't remember who was first on my slideshow, so whoever it is, that's going first. It's Jack.
Sweet. Am I able to move the screen, change slides?
I think I'm going to have to be steering from my end, so I will get you going that way, and then you just tell me when to go next.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Jack. I'm currently a grad in Nelson, and I've been involved in Downer through all my internships. So originally I was actually with just a small local company in Taranaki, but they were subcontracted to Downer, and then summer after that I worked on the Turitea wind farm, and then now I'm a grad, so I'll just talk to you about some of the experiences there. Cheers. So I was first with Whittaker's, and I found this, how it wasn't Downer, I was just a labourer on the ground, which I found super handy and super helpful in from now going forward. Just learnt that sort of experience being on the ground. I found it was really handy. I did all sorts. We were boxing a concrete pad for road science, laying new stormwater pipe, and we did a led a project building the foundations for a new water reservoir. Working on the ground was super helpful. Just you learned a lot of different terminology that I hadn't heard before. Even just simple things like, for me, like they were talking about stuff called, like they were talking about buns and whatnot. Never really understood what they were, but through that there, I sort of understood a bit more sort of jargon in the industry. And then if you would switch over, please, Ryan, to the next one. And then, what was it? Not last summer, summer before, I was lucky enough to get onto the Turitea wind farm, which is in the Manawatu. It was sort of like an informal internship in a way. I sort of got in quite late to work on that project, but it was just, I don't know, I thought it was such a cool project to work on. Some few quick facts about it. It's going to be New Zealand's largest wind farm, and it's going to be in the top 5 worldwide, which is pretty cool. As you can see there, power up to 375,000 electric vehicles. And a cool fact that I learnt while I was on there was when the wind speed doubles, the energy produced by the turbines increases 8-fold, which I thought was just, obviously these are the science stuff around that, which you'll learn in 4th year. I think I learned how and why. Well, it's quite interesting. So it was a multi-stage project. So there was north side and south side. With, I think it was pretty much roughly split 30 turbines each side. And these were massive, massive turbines. They had problems getting them actually up because it's up on a range, and they had problems getting them up because the blades were too long for the corners of the hill. So if you flip over to the next slide, please, Ryan. So I was on that project. I came in and was part of the environmental team. The whole wind farm was on the Turitea Ranges. So it's a massive, it's all native virgin bush. So obviously a massive environmental focus around the project just to make sure that we weren't negatively impacting the environment. Also, half the catchment ended up going to the Palmerston North drinking catchment. So that too also had to be considered when we were working on it. So my sort of job was ensuring that all the environmental controls were built correctly, maintained, and were working as they were designed to. So this involved working with the subcontractors to make sure that the SRPs or sediment ponds were built to the correct size, in the correct place, to the correct height, and were all to spec. From this here, I was with another intern at the time, and we'd go through and as-built them, as-built, which is like a just confirming that it's been built properly and as to spec. And we'd go through and all throughout site check these ponds as they were being built and after they were being built. Because it's obviously a wind farm, it's in quite a harsh environment and quite often get a lot of rain. So every event, which was, I think it was 20 mils of rain within 12 hours, I think, we had to go and check every single pond to make sure that it wasn't overflowing and it was working as required. It's all very well, but I think when I left, there were over 120 ponds on site, so it took us a while to go around in the rain to go check them all. And I also worked with the SMP, making minor revisions to it, which is the Site Environmental Management Plan. This was a real cool internship to get on, just because there was so much sort of going on with it. And they actually gave us quite a lot of responsibility once we sort of understood about it. Now as a grad, because I was part of that internship group, I believe we sort of got interviewed ahead of other applicants, which was quite good. Just got the extra foot in the door, which I found super helpful. I think probably helped me a lot in getting down a graduate job. From that, I moved up to Nelson. Never really been to Nelson, but I was like, oh yeah, Nelson seems like a pretty cool place. We'll try it up there. I'm now working with the sealing crew doing quality assurance, just making sure that they are spraying the emulsion at the correct rate, using the right chip, using the right methods, and they're building the roads as they should be built effectively. I'm also slightly involved in the Saxons Creek upgrade, which is a smaller project, but it's pretty much restoring an old stream to prevent flooding in the Nelson area. If you flip over to the next slide, just some advice going into your internships and your grad roles, or going to work. Time spent on the ground is real valuable. Don't try straight away shoot straight to the top, get in that sort of top, well, not the top role, but get up there. Spending time on the ground, you learn a lot about how the people doing the work want to be informed about things, in terms of what they need to do the job correctly, some of the constraints that you may not see if you're never there. Get onto your for those applying for grads and internships, highly recommend Downer, and get onto applications and everything early. I sort of wish I did in first year, got onto them a lot earlier, but didn't. And ask questions. So there's no such thing as a silly question out there, and more often than not, people are real happy to help answer your questions, explain more about them. They've all been there, they've all gone into a situation where they don't really know, and they're more than happy to help you out. Is there another slide there? Understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. Don't just be told go do this and just do it blindly. Try understand what the purpose is, what the end result of it is, why it needs to be done. And always be looking for work. One thing that I got one of the contractors that I was working with at one stage, they sort of said, it's real good how you don't just sit there and just wait for someone to give you a job. You actually go out and search for it. So I think it's real important, keeping busy, I guess. And also, one last thing to finish on, don't try and people please. There was one situation I got in that, if there's one advice I can give it, we all probably don't do this. I was in a meeting and they said, is this pond going to be completed by, Friday? I was sort of like, oh yeah, nah, should be, yeah, nah, sweet as, yeah, good as, and like, oh sweet, all the bosses were like, yeah, that's real good. Turned out it wasn't, which caused a bit of a delay in the project. So yeah, don't try people pleasing. Good luck to you all. And if you guys got any questions, let me know about anything. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Jack. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, a really, really important to, with some of that advice that you were saying there, I really agree. I think it's so important to, as a young graduate intern coming into the business, is you get the opportunity to use the fact that you don't know about, when you come out of university, the expectation in the business is that you know nothing. And that is such a gift because it means that then you have to learn everything. So the only way to learn is by asking questions and being inquisitive and talking to the right people and building those relationships. So it's not waiting for somebody to come to you. It's going out and finding out, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? Why is this happening? Building those relationships with people, it shows a lot about the amount of initiative that you have and therefore the amount of responsibility somebody's willing to give you. So I think it's a really important and a really good piece of advice for people to spend that time asking questions. There are no silly questions, so you can always ask and nobody has an expectation that So it is really important to kind of shift the mindset from coming out of university after 4 years or after 2 years or wherever you're at, and thinking that you should know X, Y, and Z, because the reality is that university is a great place to build you a foundation of learning, understanding first principles, understanding that that engineering judgment. But once you're in the industry, it's all about learning again, because learning never stops. You're going to learn for the entirety of your career. So I think that's really, really great and good advice for everybody that's involved there. Cool. So I'm going to jump to our next presentation, and then if we do have questions at the end, we can share questions then. But we'll jump through to our next presentation. So thanks, Jack. And over to you now, Caleb.
Sweet. Can you hear me all good?
Yeah, I hear you great.
Sweet. As Ryan said, I'm Caleb Rust, and I'm here to talk to you about my 2 previous summer intern experiences with Downer, and also my current graduate program experiences today, just on my first rotation, and also just give you a bit of advice as you start your young career. It was only this time last year that I was sitting in your guys' shoes, albeit in person, but just making the tricky decision of who to apply for or where to pursue a career. So I definitely know how it feels. So first up, I was up in New Plymouth based on the MPDC Reservoirs project for my first summer internship. This was actually the project that I first met Jack on, and this was the one where he was doing work for a subcontractor. So Downer was to oversee and manage the construction of 2 water reservoirs. This was just to strengthen the water supply of the New Plymouth District Council. Just for a wee fun fact, the water volume of the 2 reservoirs is equivalent to 36,000 bathtubs. So it's a heck of a lot of water just for the sheer volume of the project. Just for this project too, also being able to move to a different and relocate to a different part of the country meant that I could really grow personally and professionally also. So due to the length of the project, I was only able to be a part of the initial earthworks and site establishments for these 2 sites. However, as you can see from the photos, it was an incredibly beautiful place to work for the summer, and I wasn't complaining at all with that view of the mountain that you can see of the photo on the far right. Next slide, please, Ryan. I was able to definitely get my hands dirty and get some hands-on experience during this project. As you can see on the photo on the left, that's us and the team, and actually Jack holding the staff, shooting some levels of retaining wall that was going to be put in place. And then also I was able to do some subgrade testing of the foundation. In the middle, I'm just doing a scalar penetrometer test. And then on the far right, I'm doing a shear vein test. So it was just really cool getting that on-site experience. Next slide, please. During this internship, I was able to build some really strong relationships with the Downer crew that was working on this project, and also I still keep in contact with many of these people to this date, which is really cool. During my second to last year at uni, I was also a bit lucky to go up on a few site visits to the site when I didn't have too many assignments due, and this was really rewarding because my passion really lies in the structural side of engineering, so being able to see the structural form of these reservoirs take shape was really rewarding. And just the photo on the far right is of the completed Henwood reservoir that was just completed at the end of last year, and as you can see from the photo, they did a really good job with that project. So next up, my second summit internship. I was based down here in Christchurch with the Transport Services construction team. Now, this was a totally different internship experience, and it was sort of my first sort of look into the roading side of Downer. So for this project, I was based on sort of smaller transport services projects, including road maintenance. These were projects from as far north as Kaikoura and as far south as the Mackenzie Basin and anywhere in between. So there's definitely a lot of land to be covered with these projects. So the first project that I found myself on was the Waikari Pavements Rehabilitation Project. So this project involved repairing portions of the existing pavement just to reset the deterioration process of this length of road. That's quite a main length of road between Christchurch and Hamner Springs and thereon sort of thing. So for this project, I was able to do some labouring. This included some GPS surveying, again, some scalar penetrometer tests and some laying of geotextiles and geogrid. I was also able to do some, put in place some environmental controls. This included sediment fencing and just putting some witches' hats in the drain. This was all part of ensuring that no fines or sediments entered the Waikari waterway streams. And then finally, I just did some auditing of the overall site. And then the next project that I found myself on was the Hilltop Pavement Renewals Project. And as you can see from the photos, it was an extremely difficult site to be working on, and managing traffic management was crucial to ensuring that everybody was kept safe on site, just doing their job and wanting to return home at night to their loved ones. So, and just for a bit of context, this is the road as you climb the hills towards Aparoa, if you're familiar with sort of Canterbury. For this project, I was involved in auditing, doing some as-builts, quality control, and then some final walkovers and final inspections, and writing the long final report for this project. That was all very much fun. And then finally, I was able, during this internship, I was able to actually do some tendering, which was really cool because it gave me the first-hand experience of looking over some contract documents that were put together by the NZTA and then also some local councils. And then for this also, I was able to help out with some price estimating, which was really cool to see that I could actually help out because we were actually using first principle estimating, which is, I think, something that you learn in a third year course, which it was really cool to actually be to see it in real life and being able to be a part of it. So that was also really cool. And just to sum up, next slide, please, Ryan. From my two summer internships, it was sort of my first step and look into the contracting industry, and it really opened my eyes to the opportunities and the vastly different projects that I could potentially find myself on if I were to apply for the graduate program. And that was definitely one of the main reasons that I decided to apply for the graduate program. And then also it allowed me to build some really strong relationships that as I said before, I still keep in contact with many of these people that I worked on my internships with. And then also I was just able to learn the Downer way, whether it was health and safety and all of that sort of site stuff. It was just really cool to be a part of, and it's definitely why I decided to pursue a career with Downer in their graduate program. So just now currently I'm just only started at the start of the year in my first graduate rotation, but for this graduate rotation, I'm with the Structures and Temporary Works team, which was definitely a team that I didn't have any idea that even existed within Downer before actually joining the team. But how I can sort of describe the team is they're they're within the Downer's technical services team, and it's basically just a mini internal design consultancy that focuses on temporary works and also some permanent works designs and which you can see from the photos, are some pretty cool jobs. The top one is on that project, Saxton's Creek, that Jack's previously talking about, and then some bridges down in Southland. So those were some projects that some of the more senior people in the team have just recently completed. So the first job that I found myself on at the start of this year was a containerized pump slab foundation. So I found myself on this project right at the beginning, and it was lucky enough that this was one of the projects that's currently, albeit very small, but underway in Christchurch at the moment. So it meant that I was actually able to do some site visits, and during these site visits, I was able to see a GPR being done, which is a ground penetration radar, just to see what surfaces are below the foundation and their certain depths, just to be able to take this into account in the developed design stage. And then with this project, I was also lucky enough to take a lead in developing the design calculations and drawing for this project. This project is meant to be starting in the coming weeks, so I also have a bit of a part to play in the quality control and making sure that the plans that I actually was able to calculate and use the standards and do the actual drawings actually come to piece actually on site. So that'll be really cool to see. And then finally, I've done a lot of previous work in the previous months, but I'm also doing a bit of more work on this project now, but it's the State Highway 30 Kopaki Bridge replacement. From the photo in the top left corner, you can see that's the existing bridge, which is sort of reaching its end of life. And the main issue with it is that it currently has some weight restrictions in place. And for a state highway, that's not ideal with it being a major transportation route. So on the bottom left corner, you can see the replacement bridge 3D model that was produced by one of the senior members of our team. And if you can sort of see on the top left corner of it, the span between the two abutments, you can see how it splays out a bit, and that's meant a lot of complexity in the temporary works design for this bridge. And I've been lucky enough to be a part of the completing the drafting of drawings for the formwork for when the topping slab's being poured. And then just recently, only been working on it today actually, I've also been doing some quite tricky torsion calculations for the beams just due to their asymmetrical nature and their ability to, not good torsion restraints. Well, we need good torsion restraints, so yeah. And so just finally, a bit of advice that I can give you as young professionals, even though I'm very much just started off in my young professional career. These are a few tips I can give you that I've learned from some cool people that I've been able to do some work with and listen to. So first up, you're never going to stop learning, and you should never want to stop learning either. I think Ryan touched on it before, just about you should always want to learn, and earlier on in your career, you should just really act like a sponge and soak up as much knowledge as you can, and also not be afraid to ask a question, because as Jack said, no questions are silly questions. So just don't be afraid to use your voice and ask some questions, because that's the best way to learn. Secondly, be in control of your future. That's something that one of the main reasons that I decided to sign up and join the Downer graduate program is because I'm very much in control of the graduate program, and as Ryan said, I get to sort of dictate my next rotations and decide my sort of destiny within the company. And that's something that really sort of stands out to me. And as Ryan said before, it's what you put in is what you're going to get out. So being able to be in a sort of graduate program like that is really cool. And then finally, just gain as much experience as possible, whether it's in your internships or your graduate positions, because the more experience that you gain, the more better, well-rounded engineer you will become, and you'll pay dividends with that in your future career. So yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Cool. I think, Caleb, one of the things that's so true about that is that, every day is a new opportunity for you to kind of, learn something new. And that's really, it seems cliche, but it's really easy in a working environment to say, oh, well, I'm doing this, and it becomes monotonous. It becomes that you do the same thing day in and day out, and you stop looking for ways to learn. And I think it's really important that if you ever feel like you're not learning, either ask for ways that you can learn something else or move on to something else, because you always want to be learning. You always want to feel that. And especially in those early years in your career, there's an infinite amount of people out there that want to share that knowledge, but you've got to ask for it. And you've got to try and find ways to obtain that. You know, I like to think of the industry right now has this large portion of it that is what I deem as aging assets that are leaving the industry. And it's really important to come out there and learn from them, because so that we don't make the same mistakes again that were made previously. So learning about why things are being done a certain way, you know, what they've tried in the past, so that we can start to figure out how do we formulate innovative solutions from learning from some of the lessons learned that have happened in the past, you know. And I think that's really, really valuable. When you're on these different rotations, you come across all sorts of different knowledge sources, and trying to tap into them along the way is really, really important. But yeah, awesome, cool. Well, thanks, Kelb. It was really cool to see the MPDC contract from when it first started. I never saw that reservoir from when it was first on the ground, so kind of cool to see those photos and what it looks like now. Cool. Alrighty, so next up we've got Joma, who is going to talk about his couple of summers with us, and then being based down in Dunedin. So I'll pass it over to Joma.
Cheers, Ryan. Can everyone hear me? All good?
Yep, all good.
Sweet. So yeah, as Ryan said, I'm Joma, and I'm going to be talking about my Downer experience with the 2 summer internships in the graduate program so far. So my first summer internship was with the Christchurch Southern Motorway 2, or CSM2 project, which went from the start of CSM1, the end of CSM1, around the Hallsville Junction, all the way towards Ralston. So it's quite a big project. And within the project's just some project information, it was an estimated cost of $195 million. It was a 4-laning project, but it consisted of so many more aspects other than road construction, like bike path construction, bridge construction, retaining walls, and so much more. And my main responsibilities throughout this project were mostly assisting the graduate and site engineers, doing small earthwork quantities, helping with the crew plans and permits, and doing QA work. And something about this project I think that stood out to me was that it was almost a shame that I was put into such a big project, but for a first summer internship. But I think it was a blessing in disguise, because it put me on the ground and helped me learn about the processes, which I wouldn't learn about if I was caught up in all the other things. So it was really cool being on the ground with such a large project. Next up, for my second summer internship, I was with the asset management and operations team in Christchurch. So for this, it wasn't really a project, but it was more of a team where the asset management team found maintenance issues throughout in North Canterbury and South Canterbury NOC, and they'd hand this information over to the operations team, and then they'd go out and fix it. So it was a really interesting sort of team to be in, but obviously there was a lot of procedures in between, so it wasn't that general. My main responsibilities were transferring the NC and SC maintenance management plans into new formats, installing speed signs in Waikuku, road inspection audits, doing ATP road markings, the GoPro calibration task, and the culvert inspection of the NC NOC area. So as you can see in the top left picture there, that is the combination of Argonaut and the GoPro calibration task. And this was used to increase the safety of the road inspection audits. So with these audits, it would usually consist of people driving around in a car throughout the whole of North Canterbury and South Canterbury NOC, and auditing them and inspecting the roads in person. So usually they would require the person getting out of the car and measuring things physically. So through the use of the technology, as can be seen on the screen there, we would video the road at a very, very specific angle without having to step outside of the vehicle. So we would go back to the office, inspect the videos using Argonaut, and find the issues specific to those changes and locations. So I'm not sure if you can see it in the picture there, but there's a yellow box that kind of outlines the road bleeding, and it shows like the area. And yeah, basically there was no need for a person to get out the car and put themselves in danger. Instead, we used the GoPro to do the job for us. So I thought that was quite cool. And finally, for my graduate program, right now I'm based in Dunedin, working on the State Highway 88, Dunedin to Port Chalmers safety improvement. So for this project, it has a cost of approximately $30 million. Before it was tendered out to Downer, it was split into 3 stages. The first stage was the shed path and boardwalk path construction. The other was the Kiwi Rail realignment. And lastly, it was a safety improvement of State Highway 88. So Waka Kotahi thought that it would be better to put all of these into one package, and that's where we are now. So for this project, my main responsibilities so far have been scalar and NDM testing, QA for boardwalk power record cards and NDMs, doing the schedule of quantities. Right now I'm leading the team in the earthwork quantities department, which is pretty interesting. Doing daily reports and assisting the site and project engineers with whatever they need. So I've never been on a project that's done boardwalk piles. And at first I wondered how they put these piles on the water. And I found out that they actually used amphibious diggers, which can float on water and drive these piles in or socket them into the ground, which I thought was really cool when I saw the machine operating. So finally, some general advice for everyone there. The first would be ask lots of questions, even if you think it's a stupid one. I had a story with my site engineer on site. When he first got onto this project, they were talking about potholing, and he was confused because there weren't any potholes in the road, but he later found out that potholing meant getting a hydrovac truck out and putting a hole in the ground to see if there are any live wires and cables in the ground before excavating. So no question is a stupid one. You just have to ask away. And yeah, people are really open to answering questions. The next one would be making connections with other engineers and just in general, the people who you're working with. I think making connections is one of the most important skills you can learn. And it's made easy with Downer because everyone here is so open to sharing with you their knowledge and their experiences. And later in the future, you never know when that connection will come in handy. And lastly, be open to try new things outside of your comfort zone. So as you can see, I've been on a few different projects, very different from each other. And that's helped me kind of shape my path into what I want to become in the future. So I know what I don't like and I know what I do like in the construction world. And that's what's really good about working at Downer as well, because they put you in all these kind of situations where you could learn so many new things and you just have to be open and confident enough to take it on. And yeah, thank you for listening. Cheers, Ryan.
Awesome. Thanks, Gemma. Yeah, I think that, you know, one of the things I'm hoping that everybody's hearing today is, you know, if you listen to just the three gents that have just kind of told about their stories and their internships, is you all kind of managed to see so many different parts of the business and so many different locations around the country. And I think that's one of the things about our industry, is that there are opportunities in so many different locations. So, you know, being adaptable, being flexible, and being willing to step out of your comfort zone really allows you to kind of see and work in a lot of different environments. You know, and some of the most exciting and some of the coolest projects we have are in some of the more regional, rural areas. You know, and I think that as young engineers that are starting your careers, if you're able to move around and explore and see different pieces of the country and the work that we have going on, there's amazing opportunities there for you to learn. And so I encourage you, especially in your internships, to take a jump out and you know, spend a summer away from home or away from Christchurch for the summer if you're able to, you know, because you really can learn so much from that, and it can open your eyes to what's possible in a lot of different a lot of different teams that are out there. Cool. So I guess now, you know, hopefully you've heard some of the diversity of the different teams and of some of our graduates that are here with us today. But I often get asked this question. So what are we looking for? You know, what are the things that, you know, is it about having an amazing CV? Is it about having great grades? Is it about having, you know, what work experience you've had? Yes, all of that is something that factors in. But I'll tell you right now that the most important thing for me is the attributes that you show through your soft skills, your willingness to learn, the ambition, your communication, you know, being innovative, being, you know, taking ownership, and all of these things, they feel like they're soft skills. They feel like they're things that somebody might say, well, how can I showcase any of that in an application? And the way that I think it's really important is that you can do so much before you actually apply to a business to give yourself a foot in the door. So yes, internships are one thing, great opportunity, you know, maximize those opportunities, try and get different experiences, whether it's with the same company, whether it's with different companies, really try to maximize those experiences, build relationships, maintain relationships, connect in with people through LinkedIn, or, you know, whatever professional network works for you, but use that as a way to show some of your ambition, some of the, you know, the way in which you connect in with people. The other thing that I'm going to say is crucial important is spend time to write a good cover letter. You know, I see hundreds of applications that come through every year for all of our programs. And I read every one of the cover letters that come in. And I'll tell you right now, the amount of, it is a handful that stand out. And the reason they stand out is because we get a lot of cover letters and a lot of people that will write something that says, I'd like to apply for insert company name here because generic answer about, you know, what you can offer the business. And I understand that there's a lot of people that will write cover letters for multiple companies, and it's just easy to just put in the company's name, send it off with your application, you know, scatter blast out as many applications as you can and hope something comes back. I do understand that. But on the other side of things, the ones that stand out and the ones that put themselves in the right category of getting opportunities are the ones that say, hey, you know, I'd really like to work for Downer, whoever it might be, because, you know, this is something that I've heard that you're working on that I'd really love to get exposed to. Or I was speaking to my friend so-and-so, they had an internship with you over the summer and they got involved in these sorts of things. And that sounds like something I'd really be keen on getting involved in. Or I know that you are working on this project and I have a passion in so-and-so. Taking that little bit of extra time to do a bit of research into the business and a bit of tying that into what you're interested in gives me a really good understanding that you've spent a little bit of time on it. You've spent, you know, and for me, the cover letters that stand out, I will automatically progress that person through to a, you know, at least to look at for a second glance. Yes, grades are going to play a factor. Yes, you know, your experience will come into play to an extent. But I find that too often graduates and students spend all of their time focusing in on how to format their CV or how to make sure that they're selling themselves to the best of their ability on what skill sets they might have in their CV. And like I mentioned before, the reality is that when you're starting your career, the expectation is that you're coming in with a good amount of theoretical knowledge, but no real practical experience. And that's okay. That's what we're looking to develop. And that's what we as an organization can give you and can grow on. So really important that you do think about those soft skills and how you can get your foot in the door before you actually go and, you know, just send your application out, you know, willy-nilly to everybody that's out there. You know, and I think it is something that's really important. Connect into fellow students that you know have spent a summer working with the company. ask them about their experience, learn from them, ask if they can connect you in with somebody at the company if they need to, ask if you can go out and check out a site visit. Caleb mentioned before about how in his summers after he had spent time in New Plymouth working on the reservoir there, going back and checking in with that team, building those relationships. The byline of the company is relationships creating success. Well, that's, as cliche as it is, it's a reality, and it is really important to kind of build those relationships and know that you are always building relationships and you are always a reflection of the work and the legacy that you're leaving in every role you play. So every internship, every rotation, along the way, you're building relationships and you're leaving an impression of the legacy of kind of the professional worker that you are becoming. So it's really important that as every rotation you go on or every internship experience, that you try and maximize your learnings while you're there, but also that you try and build the relationships and leave an impression on that team of who you are as a working professional. And that's it's something that's really, really important. And I really encourage you to think about that when you're going into your rotations or when you're going into your internships. Cool. So here are some key dates. So our graduate campaign just opened up on Monday. So we are open for 4 weeks. So I encourage you, if you're interested, if you're a fourth-year student and looking to apply for the graduate program, applications are open until the 18th of April. You can apply. I'm not sure. Hopefully, I have it on here. I don't. So you can apply for those through our website, downercareers.co.nz. If you look up www.downer.co.nz, you'll find information about where you can find for jobs. You can look for it there. You can also look through Next Step or Grad New Zealand, where all our campaigns are open there. But yeah, our applications are open now. We're looking for civil, mechanical, electrical, and electronic graduate engineers to come and join us for our program. We also have our scholarship campaign, and I really recommend that if you're interested, if you're a second or a third year student, that you look at our scholarships that come out. We have everything from $5,000 to $10,000 or $5,000 to $12,000 scholarships available for students. And if you can see the criteria for when those become available, but I really encourage you that you look and apply for those. Any of our scholars are guaranteed internship placements and guaranteed graduate positions on the program if they choose to take that up. But it is a great way to kind of get support and build those relationships while you're still doing your undergraduate program. And then our internship program will open in June. So our internship program is open from the 27th of June to the 17th of July. As I said before, that is a 3-month program. So just to talk through really quick the process for some of these campaigns. So our graduate campaign, there will be an initial application. It will then be followed by a video application, which will then be followed by an in-manager or a manager presentation component, where you'll do a presentation on either previous internships or maybe something about your 4th year project to kind of give the business an indication of what are some of the things you're passionate about, so we can look at where we might be able to start you in the business if that was going to be a successful candidate. Scholarship campaign, it is an application and then an interview. So that's the process there. And the internship program, it's an application, a video application, which will then come as a follow-up from that. Then we do a half-day assessment center, which is just a really great way to kind of get to know some of our candidates and some of the people that are applying forward. And that would then look at our internship placement. So that's sort of some of the opportunities that exist within the business. Hopefully you learned something today, or that you learned a little bit more about our organization. I really encourage you, you've met a couple of people today. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, connect in with us, ask any questions that you have in that format if you don't get a chance to be here live tonight. Yeah, thank you so much for having us today. And yeah, if there is any questions, feel free to ask them along now. But if not, you can always reach out via LinkedIn if you've got anything further, or through the university, they can give you the right contacts to get in touch with us as well. Cool. So I'm going to stop sharing there and just going to see.
Doesn't look like there's any questions in the chat, but thank you, Ryan, for the great presentation. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And thanks to the rest of the team at Downer.
Awesome. Cool.